Good football, good basketball. They work their tails off. They're a great story. Trent Dilfer's joining me. 15 years in the NFL, a decade and a half, a Pro Bowl, a Super Bowl, and a head football coach in Nashville, Lipscomb Academy. You shaved your beard, by the way. You don't look like a man lost in the mountains anymore. So congratulations on that as you're hanging out in your summer home and your winter home, I guess, in Lake Tahoe. Let me start with the Packers. Sometimes wins are wins and sometimes they mean more. And I did think in the building, a lot of my eye rolling at the Packers between the draft, the running back in the second round, and who's Matt LaFleur, he'd been a quarterback, and, they never spend money on free agency. And I look up this morning, I'm like, well, they kind of answered, they were kind of right on everything, right? Like, I thought it was it was a good foundational, organizational win. It said a lot of things about them, I thought, last night.
I'd agree with that, and I think they won on their terms. They want to get the lead early, protect that defense. They want to be balanced. I think that's what Matt LaFleur has done the best job with this offense, is the ability to spread you out, quick game, tighten you up, run game, play action. I think that first drive, they had 4 runs, 4 passes. This is a football team that Aaron makes everybody better. And if you put Aaron in a position where he can operate at a high level early on, spread the ball around, have the freedom of a run game to set the play action pass, they get a couple score lead, and the defense plays better than its talent. I'm still not totally sold on them of finishing this race and winning a Super Bowl because of the defense. But if they can play on their terms like they did last night, then they're going to be tough to beat in Lambeau.
It's funny. I was looking up a number this morning let me look at this real quick. It was Lamar Jackson. And, you told me this years ago, there's a lot of different ways to win in this league. Mm-hmm. And Lamar Jackson in the last month has 117 passer rating. And for his career, it's over 100. And I keep hearing he can't throw. And I say, listen, it's not always the most beautiful thing, but I do see touch. I do see him coming out of halftime, second half, and making adjustments. I know it's not going to win any beauty contests, but I watch him, Trent. He wins. He's a hard matchup. I think he throws good enough when you consider the other elements, doesn't he?
I agree. I've always said this about him. He throws it actually pretty darn well in between the hashes for all the reasons you're saying. He can change speeds on the ball. He can change trajectory on the ball. He anticipates well in the middle of the football field. And he gets some open looks in the middle of the football field because he's so dynamic as a runner and because his running game supports that so well. Where he struggles outside the numbers, when you get those isolation throws out on the boundary versus tight coverage. But guess what? So do 20 quarterbacks in the NFL. There's very few that can anticipate well versus tight coverage and throw people open outside. This is a guy that, and here's what I like the most about the Ravens. They've identified his DNA, what he does best. Obviously, handling a very complex run game, him running the football, him being a threat in the run game, and then him dominating in between the hashes as a passer. They don't try to do anything else. And that's why he's been playing so well the last month or so. I have them as one of the few teams in the NFC that can beat the Chiefs and get to the Super Bowl because they've refound their identity and they're calling plays that Lamar does best.
I'm watching the Seahawks-Rams game yesterday, and, I've watched every Rams snap because I'm in Los Angeles. This year we didn't see their preseason games, but their games all kind of look the same. Mm-hmm. It's a lot of this counter stuff. The offense doesn't change a lot, and I look at it and I think, okay, so you are what you are, and I get it. But when I watch Jared Goff, here's my big issue. Is that if he is off, if you move him out of what he had at the line of scrimmage, if you ask him to ad lib, the accuracy goes. Now he's having a confidence issue. The ball doesn't come out good. And I look at myself, and I know he's won games, but I look at myself and I see McVay's body language and I hear him, and I don't know if McVay and Goff, is it maybe Goff the wrong quarterback for McVay's offense?
I don't know. They've been pretty successful. I agree that Jared has to play the game a certain way. He needs to play on time. The longer the play develops inside the pocket, the worse he gets. He tends to be better in the play action game. He struggles in the drop back game. The only thing that doesn't fit completely is they boot so often. They make it and boot. So they change the launch point. So often, and Jared's not the most athletic guy. And one of the advantages of changing the launch point and getting outside the pocket is if your receivers aren't open, is having a mobile quarterback that could then go attack the line of scrimmage as a runner. Steve Young, think of Steve Young. They did a ton of naked and boots with Steve Young. It wasn't there. Boom. He's using his feet and he's getting you 8 to 15 yards of offense. That's the only the only fit part that I don't see. I do think Jared does a great job at the line of scrimmage, handling the run game, handling all the checks. I think Jared's a good football player. Is he great? No, but I think he's very good, and he has the ability, if they stick with him, to be even more successful than he's been to this point.
So what are we to do with the Tua benching? I mean, Brian Flores, I guess at some point you're paid to be a therapist when you're a head football coach. Yeah. What do you make of the benching? What does it mean?
Well, I think this is one of the few head coaches that can get away with it. He's pushed all the right buttons this season. I thought Fitzpatrick said something really interesting. I don't know if this got any carry on media, but in one of his quotes, he said, "This is the one coach I can see doing this because he communicates so well Monday through Saturday." And I think that's a big piece of this, is what Brian Flores is telling these quarterbacks during the week, how honest he's being with them, the expectations for you, Tua. Hey, Tua, you do A, B, and C, and you're the guy. But as soon as you don't do one of those things, we got a pretty good reliever we're going to bring in who I know will do those things. And as long as you're honest and transparent with the quarterbacks going in, then I think they can live with it. You also have two pretty unselfish guys here, too. You have a unique room, and I thought the announcing crew did a good job. I think it was Kurt Warner talking about that dynamic, how these two have really be like a big brother, little brother relationship. I was in a very good room like this with Matthew Hasselbeck in Seattle. When the two guys really respect each other, they really have a bond, and they're in it for the greater good of the team. They're in for something bigger than themselves. Then I think you can make these decisions. If there's animosity between the two players, if one player is a very selfish player, if he's doing stuff behind the scenes, then you can't do this stuff. So I think Brian Flores has pushed all the right buttons. He's been honest with them, and you have two unique, selfless people you're dealing with.
So, we know Kansas City's good, but it's funny. Mahomes' passer rating in December is in the 80s. And, Mike Vick came on earlier and he said, I think Andy's experimenting a little bit, like finding out what they're not good at and finding out what they are. I guess you can do that when you're them. But boy, Trent, it's hard for me in the NFL to watch a team struggle in December and think, here comes Buffalo, they'll be fine. Isn't there a little concern with how Kansas City's playing, even despite winning?
Normally, I would say yes. I think they're an aberration to a certain degree. They're just different than everybody else. Their floor is so much higher than everybody else's. Andy knows they can play They can play C-level, just middling football and still beat people. They played really well defensively. They made plays when they had to. I think the one thing he has in his back pocket, his running backs were banged up. I think the thing he has in his back pocket is we can get into the playoffs and we can run the rock, we can play action pass, and we can make big plays. And they didn't do any of those things last couple weeks, but that's what playoff football is. He knows he can get into the playoffs. He still has the magic of Mahomes, the dynamic playmakers everywhere. They're coming out of their ears. But he'll get back into the playoffs. They're going to run the rock at a higher level. They're going to play action pass off of that. When they play action pass off of it, you're going to see home run shots. And they know they can trust the quarterback on third down to convert long yard situation and keep drives alive. I still, as bad as they're playing, I agree they're not playing well. I think they're by far the favorite to win the Super Bowl.
Finally, you played 14, 15 years in this league, and there's one or two things that are really hard. I said this with Seattle. It's almost impossible to have a weakness and in season make it a strength. Seattle's pass rush, Dunlap, Jamal Adams, good coaching. They've done it. I also think it's hard when you can lose a game but not the locker room. To kind of lose the locker room, have a bye like the Cowboys, come out, and it's like you're limited, but you're not a bad football team anymore. And I think Mike McCarthy did what's really hard is that you kind of reboot or re-engineer the locker room during the bye, and they have limitations, Trent, but, they play hard now. They didn't look like they played hard in September. That's what I see with the Cowboys now. Not just winning, but the way they're playing. What do you see?
I agree. I tip my hat to Coach McCarthy and the entire staff, the entire building, because it takes the entire building. It's not just the head coach and some speech he gives. frankly, when the head coach gives those speeches in a tough situation, I've been on those teams, you kind of roll your eyes. But when the whole building, when everybody says, hey, let's buy in, let's change. If you don't like the way things are going, change the way you do things. And let's really have a higher accountability. Let's play for a purpose bigger than ourselves. Let's make sure we all finish this race strong. Then you can have change. And I think that's what the Cowboys have done. I give Coach McCarthy, that staff, the players, the veteran leadership, other people in that building a lot of credit for how they've been able to turn this thing around, because it did. It was one of the few times it looked like a team just didn't care.
Right.
Early in the year. And now it looks like they really care. There's a passion, and I still don't think they're very good, but there's a passion and an energy and a juice to them. It's a complete 180 from what they were the first half of the season.
I mean, listen, Trent, the Bears were on a